Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jess with So Many Creations. In this video, I'm going to walk you through my brand new Poppy wallet. How cute is this? It's small, but it has a place for everything. It has a place for cash, for coins, for your ID, for your credit cards, and there's a bonus. I think this is gonna make some of you really, really happy. There's a men's version. Finally, the thing that you guys have been asking me for forever. And I know I probably told you it wasn't going to happen because I didn't think it was either. But thanks to one of my customers and my sister and my husband's input as well, we have a men's version. So let's take a look at this one first, and then I'll show you the one I have with all the bells and whistles. If you want to make the men's version, the simplified one, you're just going to need a piece of cork, a 9x27, and your vinyl for your ID window. No hardware, no zippers, simple. So you have your ID window, some credit card pockets, some more here, and then in the center is where you're gonna put your cash. This one I think is mine. I already put some things in it and I think it's gonna go home with me. So this one has all of the extras. It has the little coin pouch on the outside with a snap. Again, if you're not doing the snaps, if you're not doing these parts, you don't need any hardware. So I've got room for my change in here. I can close that up. On the other side is a little snap tab to close it. I always like to have some kind of closure on my wallet where a lot of other wallets don't have that. And I know men's wallets don't have that, but you have the option to add whatever is going to be suitable for whoever you're making it for. So again, here's my credit cards, my ID, more credit cards, and there's a cute little hidden pocket right here, so I can stash a little extra cash. In the middle here, that's where I have my bills. I also use some heat transfer vinyl because I can't help myself. It's just what I like to do. So I wanted to tell you a quick little tidbit about where the name came from, in case you're wondering. So you have the two different versions of this wallet. We have what I think is the more female version, and then we have the men's version. So we decided to name this Poppy, and my husband helped me come up with this name. I think it's an adorable little girl's name. It's a beautiful flower. It, to me, is very feminine, which is exactly what this is. But Poppy is actually what my sister and I called my grandfather, and that is what this is. So we kind of have a twofold name for a twofold wallet. So even more exciting than that, if you want to head to the website, which is right here for you, you can download the one-page PDF and you can get all of your cutting instructions. If you don't, you can just watch this video and I'm gonna walk you step by step through using your ruler and rotary cutter to cut your pieces. But I also have a bonus. I'm gonna show you how to use the acrylic template set that I designed to go with this pattern. It's a two-piece set. This one right here is going to mark your ID window. It also cuts the little point that is on your coin pouch. This right here has all of the marks and cuts out all of your pieces very simply. So you don't have to worry about multiple piece templates or grabbing lots of rulers. I keep it real simple for you. If for some reason those options just don't cut it and you have a cutting machine and you'd rather just have an SVG, I have that as well. You can purchase the template set or the SVG right on my website. The template is going to be right on the templates page as well as the SVG. The SVG is also linked on the tutorials page where you'll find the PDF for this pattern. I think that was everything. Man, that was a mouthful. It's time to get into cutting out our wallet and making this awesome little project. If you like videos like this, don't forget to hit subscribe, click the notification bell, and give it a thumbs up. All right, let's get into it. I've gathered all of the supplies that we're going to need for today. You'll notice that my pieces are already cut out. In the next portion, we're going to talk about how to cut them. So of course I've grabbed my ruler and my rotary cutter, but I also grabbed my Poppy acrylic template set. This is totally optional. You do not need this to make the wallet. You can just use your standard ruler. But I have an acrylic template set on the website if it helps. And so what I'm going to do in the next part is show you how to cut with your regular ruler and also how to cut with the template set. All of the pieces are going to be listed in the cutting chart, which is on the PDF. You can find that on my website on the tutorials page. I'm also going to go through each of the sizes and the pieces we need as we're cutting. So whatever works for you, if you'd rather have a paper cutout or printout, or if you'd rather write everything down, it's totally up to you. So I've got all my pieces ready to go. Before we get into sewing anything, let's talk about the other items I have here and also the machine that I'm going to sew on. I decided today that I'm going to use my Janome HD9, which is my heavy duty straight stitch machine. Now, typically in my videos, I use my S9, which is my Skyline. It's a Janome machine and that is a domestic. Can you make this on your domestic? Absolutely. That is not a problem. All of my patterns are designed to be domestic friendly. And in this pattern, the most layers that you're going to sew through at once is going to be about 4. So you'll see on the sides here, I have 2, I have 4, kind of towards the top. I have 3 layers right here, plus my vinyl. I have 4 layers right here. And again, 3 layers right here, and then right on this side, 4. So I know that my domestic machine can handle 4 layers without an issue. As long as yours can, you can use your domestic. So I'm using my HD9 today because I really like the feet. It is one of the things, I know that probably sounds silly, but for this wallet, the entire thing is going to be made using an 1/8 inch seam allowance. Everything that we do, from our top stitching to assembling the credit card pockets and the ID window, it's all 1/8 of an inch. So for me, I have a fantastic foot, this one right here. This is a compensating foot that is 1/8 of an inch. I also have a 1/4 of an inch, but today I don't need it. I just need this one. And this is a Teflon foot, so it's a non-stick. Cork doesn't stick, but I just kind of like this one better than the metal. I like the weight of it and it just kind of glides through everything really nicely. If you have a high shank straight stitch machine such as mine, you can purchase this. You can usually find them on Amazon, on Wawick.com, or on QTexCuttingSupplies.com. I've seen them in different places. I'm fairly certain that this one came from QTex, or it could be Cutex, I'm not sure. It's CUTEX SewingSupplies.com. I will list their website down below for you, and I'll also put it in the description. So this is the foot that I'm going to use for the entire project. Because it's all cork and there's a lot of things that we kind of need to place, I'm also going to be using my 1/8 inch double stick tape. I'm going to be using quite a bit of this. I hold my credit card pockets, my ID window, my pieces when they're ready to be sewn to the larger pieces. I'm going to use this quite a bit. So if you have 1/8 inch, that's going to be perfect. If you have 1/4 of an inch, you may have to adapt it a little bit. And also because it just works really well, like with the ID window and places that are kind of narrow. So I'm going to be using a lot of that today. Since I'm using my HD9, I will be using an HLX5 9014 needle. These are a heavy duty needle, same size as I normally use. And as far as thread, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the threads that I like on my heavy duty machine. Today, I'm not sure, I haven't decided which one I'm using yet, but these are all some of my favorites. So I do like the Aurifil cotton in 28 weight, so that's the gray spool. So I'm probably not going to use this today, but I might. It depends on what color works the best. So I can have this as an option. I also have my Gutermann Mara 70. This is a polyester thread, but it actually feels and looks like cotton, but I like it because it's nice and strong, but it's not, it doesn't have like a sheen to it. So I like this as well. And I also have these two. They're really big, but that's just the way that they come. This is the Wawick OptiPop. This is the Tex 45. I can go heavier in my machine, but I like this weight in the top and the bobbin. I just find that it works really nicely, and that's actually what I used here. And you can see it really shows up nicely on the cork, makes really pretty top stitching. So that is an option, and also so is the Saya Swag. This is her thread. This one again is the Tex 45. She does have a heavier one, which I can also use, but I really love the Tex 45. So that's what I'm going to use for my machine. Whatever machine you are using, if you're using a domestic, that is totally fine. I would stick with what I normally use, and that is a 40 weight cotton or a lighter polyester, not quite Tex 45. I usually go maybe Tex 35 or somewhere in like the 40 weight. And as far as needles, I would use my 9014 Microtex, and whatever foot is going to give you a nice 1/8 inch top stitching. So if you are putting in snaps, which I am going to do today, because I'm going to show you on just this one, I am going to cut a green one as well, but I will not be working on that one. I'll just be working on this one throughout the video. If you're going to add snaps, you have a snap tab option, and you also have a little coin pouch right here. Since I'm going to do both of those, I have two snaps, two sets right here. So these are the Cam Snap Fashion Snaps in size 20. Those are the ones that I use for everything. So I have the rose gold here. I got two complete sets. That's going to be one set per option. So it depends on which options you're doing. So since I'm putting in snaps, I've also grabbed my Cam Snap tool. I do also have the tabletop version. This one's much easier to use on camera, so I'm just using my handheld. And I have my die set. This is going to be for the snaps. I will show you how to put in the snaps. If you need any extra help, I do have a separate snap video. I also have my ProMaster punch nearby. It's not on camera because it's just out of reach, but that's how I'll be making my holes. Or I could use the 2.5 millimeter Cam Snap, whichever's closer. Other than that, I just have my friction marking tool. I like to use a heat erasable tool because I will be marking a couple things on the cork when it's time to place them. And I like something that I can just steam or heat off instead of having to try to erase something. I just prefer the friction pen. And I have my scissors as well. I will tell you before we get there, I am going to be putting my iron and my heat right on the cork. And the reason is, you'll notice in this wallet that when you open it, this is where your ID window is. So that kind of folds down and it will stay down with time. But what I like to do is actually kind of steam set it to make it sit. I'm sorry if that makes some of you cringe, but I have been ironing cork for about 6+ years and it's just what I do. I have never melted a piece of cork. It's something that I find is an advantage over using vinyl. The other thing that I forgot to grab on camera is my lighter. I will use my lighter for any frays, and because I'm using polyester thread, I can burn my ends. I think that's everything. We are ready to get into it. So I'm gonna clean up this mess, get my machine threaded, and then we're gonna go ahead and start. For this pattern, you actually have a few different options for cutting. You can use your standard ruler and rotary cutter. You can also purchase an acrylic template set on the website. I'm going to show you how to use both of these so that you know how to accurately cut your pieces. And the third option, if you have a cutting machine, like a Cricut, a Scan and Cut, a Silhouette, any of those types of machines, you can also purchase the SVG file on my website. So you definitely have some options. So what I'm going to do is walk you through cutting with your ruler and rotary cutter, and then I will show you how to use the acrylic template set that's also available. That way you can see what all your options are and decide what works best for you. The first set of cutting instructions is going to be using your basic ruler, rotary cutter, and cutting mat. I have here my smaller 6.5 by 12.5. This ruler works just fine. I'm using a standard 45 millimeter cutter, and I've already gone ahead and printed off the website the one-page PDF, which has all of my pieces. Now I'm going to give you the sizes as well, and I'll show you how I cut them, but if you would like to print that out so you can make the best use of your cork and have it in front of you, you can do that as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is square up my edge here. I am using a 9 by 27 piece of cork as the pattern calls for. Once I have that done, I'm going to cut my 2A pieces. Those are going to be 9.5 inches wide. So I'm going to do my 9.5 first. And then I'm going to trim these into two 4-inch high pieces. All right, my A's are all set. I didn't grab a pen, so I can't label these, but that's okay. I know what the pieces are. So I will make sure that I label them before we get into the rest of the video. So the next thing that I'm going to do, according to the chart, is I'm going to cut 4 4-inch pieces. So that's going to be 4 inches across by 9 or so inches high, as wide as my cork. If I do that first, I think it's a little bit easier to then cut it into the smaller pieces. I am probably going to make this into the men's version, which means I will not be using piece H, which is the snap tab, or piece G, which is the coin pouch, but I'm going to cut them anyway. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut my 4-inch wide pieces. And if you cut it this way, you will not run out of cork, and you'll make the best use of your cutting as well as the material in front of you. I definitely need a new blade. I can feel it keeps getting caught, but that's okay. So there's my little extra piece. I can just set that aside. And then I'm just going to follow the chart, and I'm going to take each of my pieces, just kind of square them up a little bit and trim what the chart says. So my first cut is going to be a D and a B. D is going to be for a credit card pocket. That's going to be 2 inches. And piece B, which is my ID base, is 6.5 inches. And my ruler is 6.5, so that's easy. And don't worry if you're not perfect. Nobody is. All right, so there's my B. So the next one, I'm going to be cutting my 2 H's, an E and a C. So my H's are my snap tabs. So what I'm gonna do is cut a 1.5 inch piece and then cut it in half. So my 3/4. I like to cut bigger pieces and then trim them down. That's just something I've done for a while. So there's my snap tabs. Again, I might not use those, but I'm gonna cut them anyway. I'm gonna do piece E, which is a 4x4. That one's easy. And piece C, which is 3¼ high. And C is for my ID window. So there's that. Next piece here, I am doing 3 D's. Those are my credit cards, and an F. So since I'm doing 3 2-inch pieces, I'm just cutting a 6-inch, and then I'll cut it down. You don't have to cut this way, but I just find it kind of efficient to kind of do my bigger measurement and then work my way over to the left. It's just something I've done. So I'm gonna put those with the other D's. So I have 4 D's total. And this last one is gonna be an F, which is 3 inches. And that one I cut it kind of close because I think I trimmed a little bit too much off. So that's okay. I'm just going to make do. It's not that big of a deal. My 3 inches is like off by not even 1/8. It's a hair. It's not a big deal. That's for my credit card base. And my last piece is G, and G is for my coin pouch, which I may or may not need. And that is going to be 8 inches. Okay, get rid of all my extras, close my cutter. All right, so I've got all of my pieces. Again, I did not grab a pen to mark them, but that's okay. I have my 2 A pieces. Those are going to be 4 by 9.5. Those are for the main part of the wallet. I have my B, which is right here. This is actually gonna go this way. This is 4 by 6.5. That's going to be what I call the ID base. So I'm going to have my ID window, which is piece C, 4 by 3¼ That will be on here, as well as 2 of the credit card pockets, 2 of the D's, which are 2 by 4 So those will be on that unit. Then for the next one, oops, and I forgot E. E is actually the back of this, and when we get there, you'll see why we have that extra piece. Just makes it look a lot more finished, and then we don't have the back of the cork showing. So that's going to be that unit right there. There's a lot that goes into that piece right there. Then I have this right here, which is F. This is 4 by 3 This is my credit card base. I have a second set of credit card pockets. I have 2 more D's to go on there. That right there would make the men's version. If I decide to, I also have piece G, which is right here. That's my coin pouch. That is 4 by 8 And I have 2 4-inch by 3/4 inch pieces for my snap tab. So again, probably not gonna make these, but I just wanted to show you how those all cut. And I'll kind of decide as I get to the machine, but I think this would make a really nice men's wallet. So for the next option for cutting, I'm going to show you how to use the acrylic template set that you can purchase on the website. This is a 2-piece set. Your smaller one right here that kind of looks like a little house This is going to cut your ID window out, and it's also going to trim the angle on the flap on piece G. I did not do that on the green one yet. I will show you how that looks, and we'll talk about how you can do that without this. You can just use a ruler and a rotary cutter for all of your cutting. And then this piece right here, this template is 4 inches wide by 9.5 high. And on it, you'll see that there's little measurements. There's little lines right here. That is going to help you to cut all of your pieces all from this template without using a ruler. So I'll show you how to do that. We're gonna go through the same order and I'll show you how to cut each of those pieces. So my first 2 pieces are A. Those are 9.5 by 4. I've already squared up my edge here, and I'm just gonna place this right on there. And I can see that this is not as square, so I will just scoot this up and I'll square it when I'm done. So the entire piece is gonna be for A, like that. And I try not to overcut, so then sometimes I just have to go back in with my scissors or my rotary cutter and just get that last little bit. There we go. This one I know was not square, so I'm just going to even up the one long side. Okay, there's one of my A's. I'm gonna do another A. Now I know it's nice and square. Oops. And I'm just gonna cut all the way across, just easier that way. And there we go. So we've got our 2 A's. So now we're gonna do the same thing that we did before and cut our 4-inch pieces. So we need 4 4-inch wide strips. So I'm just going to use my template. There's 1. 2. 3 and 4. All right, so we're gonna start with one of our strips here. First thing I'm going to do is just make sure this edge is nice and square so I have an even one to trim from. So I'm going to be doing 1D and 1B. And you'll notice that it says right here, start measurements here. What that means is that each of these measurements is measured from this edge. So 3/4 of an inch is from this edge, the 2 inches is from this edge, just so that you don't confuse it. So you always want to be measuring from here to the line where you need to go. So the first one is gonna be D. There's my D right there. And I'm looking at the line that is right above where it is written. So there's my D. And then I also need a B. So I'm gonna find B, which is right here, 6.5 inches. And trim. There's my B and there's my D. Next one, square up that edge. If we start with a nice straight edge, that helps tremendously. So let's do our H. We've got 2 of those. And move those there. And E, let's find our E. That is right here, 4 inches. And C, which is right here. Now, F to C, there's one little line because one is 3 inches and one is 3 1/4. So just make sure, again, you're using the line above the piece that you're cutting. So I cut piece C, so I went to the line that's written above, or that's above the writing. So I've got that. So I know C is gonna go here, and this, and this. Next one, square this up. Okay. And we're gonna do 3 Ds. So we've got 1, 2, 3 Ds, and an F. And F is right here, 3 inches. right, and last, we're gonna do G. So square up my edge, turn. G is right there. Okay, so now we've got all the main pieces done. And I'm going to pull piece G, which is right here, because that is for the coin pouch. And then I'm also going to pull piece C, which is for my ID window. And that is this one. Let me double check. Yep, that is piece C. So I'm gonna pull those pieces because I'm gonna show you how to use the second template. Now, let me grab my pen. So for the ID window, what I find is easier is to draw it and then to use the straight edge to do my cutting. Trying to get my rotary cutter in here, it can be a little dangerous because you don't have a lot to hold on to. Plus, you're never gonna be able to cut all the way around anyhow. So I'll show you how I do it. I know I'm using the correct one because it lines up at the bottom and at the line right here. So that's piece C. I'm on the back side. And I'm just gonna mark. There we go. And now what I'm gonna do is I just use the straight edge of this. And again, I try not to overcut. So I'm just gonna go around and cut right on the line. And then whatever little spots I have, I can just use my scissors, which I didn't grab. Hang on. Grab my scissors and just snip those couple little threads worth that I didn't get. I would rather finish it like this than to overcut and have regrets later. So there we go. Whoops. And I'm gonna save this little piece because I will use it later when I'm doing my snaps. So I'm gonna hang on to that. So there is my ID window. Now, in order to use the ID window, I need the ID window vinyl. So I grab that as well. And I can cut it with this piece right here because I'm gonna cut it the same as C. Or I'm just gonna use my smaller one. After I square up that edge. They're never square. Okay, now, instead of using this, here's what I like to do. Take this, line it up on this side, and then once I have it lined up, I kind of scoot it a little off and a little off, less than 1/8 of an inch. The reason is when I sew this in, I don't have to worry about the plastic hanging off the edge. If it does a little bit, I can still trim it, but I just find that a little easier. Almost. I don't care if I overcut on here, that's fine. Okay, so there is the plastic for this. So those two pieces are ready. And last but not least is going to be the little coin pouch. And I'm going to take this and lay it down. I'm just gonna use kind of the little roof of the house here. Lay it right down so that point is right on the edge of my cork. And, oops, there we go. That's all set. So if you are not using these pieces, when it comes time to trim your C, what you're going to do is, again, mark on the back, use your ruler, and on the sides, so on the shorter sides right here, that is going to be a 1/2 inch. And on your longer sides, on the top and the bottom, those are gonna be 3/8 of an inch. So you're just going to measure on the back, a 1/2 inch over or 3/8 of an inch down, make your rectangle in the center and cut that out. You'll again cut your matching vinyl. And for your, I keep wanting to say snap pouch. For your coin pouch, I don't know why I keep saying that. I'm saying it in my head. That was the only time I said it out loud. On the back here, what I do is I line this up either on my ruler or my mat. I'm gonna measure down 1 inch, make a little mark on either side, and then I'm going to find the center. From the center, I will cut to the 1 inch mark, and I'll cut to the 1 inch mark. And that's how you're going to get that nice little point. If you don't want to do that, you can leave it square. You could round it if you have another template. There's lots of options. So for the first step, we're going to do a little bit of top stitching. We're going to prep the A pieces right here. We need to fold over one of the long edges on each one and top stitch it. And here's how I have found works the best. You can definitely use tape if you want to, whatever is easier for you. What I actually like to do, you'll see that I have a line right here that's 1/4 inch from the edge. So what I'm gonna do is take my pen, and instead of just drawing a line like this, I really dig and kind of mark just like that. And I find that it scores the cork. So now when I take this to the machine, I can fold it right on that edge and it folds really nicely. So I did that to both of the A pieces, and I'm just going to fold that edge over and top stitch 1/8 inch. I'm also going to top stitch these pieces while I'm at the machine. These right here are my D's. There's 4 of those. Those are for the credit card pockets. And this piece right here is F. This is going to be for the credit card base. So the first unit that we're going to make is going to be this one. Now we'll only be using 2 of these, but we might as well get them all top stitched at once. So I'm gonna head to my machine. I'm gonna top stitch my 2 A's, my F, and my D's, and then we'll put these together. I top stitched my A pieces. So I just folded my edge over 1/4 inch onto the wrong side. If you would prefer to use tape or clips, however you want to do it is fine. I just like to use my pen to kind of score it. That's just my preferred method. So my A's are done. They can be set aside for a bit right now. I don't need those just yet. I top stitched one of the long edges on each of my D's. And now I'm just kind of burning the edges of my thread. It is polyester thread, so I can do that. And just kind of running my lighter lightly around the edges of the cork, anywhere that there's any little fraying. If you stay on top of this, it's a lot easier as you get towards the end. You don't have all these places that you have to worry about. Just get some little fuzzies. And I think some of this is actually because my rotary cutter blade is not brand new. So this is your sign to go change your blade, because I definitely should have. So those are all set. And then this is my F piece. This is my 4x3. This is going to be for the credit card base. So I have one edge top stitched. I just did the top edge here. Now, just a note, if you're using directional cork, which in a sense this one is, because if you turn it to the side, you can see it makes a different shape. You can use directional. However, if you're making the pouch in the back, the coin pouch, you might have something upside down. So other than that, the rest of it should be fine to use something. And when I say directional, I mean truly directional, like has a top and a bottom, like a tree or an animal. This one has a direction, but you can see that all my pieces are cut correctly, so I don't have to worry about that. But anything that could be deemed upside down might not work, just for the little snap pouch. So now that those are all top stitched, I'm going to grab my double stick tape and a small ruler. This is the smallest one I have close by. I usually use a much smaller one. And what I'm going to do is on the back of 2 of my card pockets, because these 2 are going to go on a different piece, I am going to put a little bit of tape. So just like that. And again, I like to use tape. You can just use clips. It's up to you. I just find that if I tape it, I don't have to worry when I get to the machine. Everything is exactly where I want it to be. I'm just going to take my paper off. All right. So on the first one here, this is my top stitched edge right here on my F piece. I'm going to measure a 1/2 inch from the bottom, and I'm going to place my first card pocket right there. Press that down. I'm going to stitch 1/8 inch right along that edge. So I'll hold it up a little bit closer. That's my top stitched edge. That's the top stitched edge on my D. I'm going to stitch right here 1/8 inch. This measurement is a 1/2 inch. Once that one is stitched in place, I will add this right on the bottom, and I will also stitch it 1/8 of an inch along the bottom. All right, easy peasy. We have our credit card little pocket done. So this is one unit. So there is my finished pocket. Underneath here, my first one was stitched right on the bottom. I added my second one and I stitched on the bottom. Now I did not stitch on the sides because when I sew it into the wallet, it's actually going to be sewn down on the sides. It will also be sewn on the bottom, but just to make sure that everything stays together. Sometimes when I'm at home, I don't do this stitching and I just use my tape. When we get to adding this into the A piece, you'll see why you can kind of choose whether you want to do that or not. So for now, this is done. I'm going to set that aside. And since we're working on our credit card pockets and we have our other 2 Ds, you're going to go ahead and grab this piece right here, which is piece B. This is 4 inches by 6.5. And we're going to do the same thing on the bottom here. Now this one does not have any top stitching on it. We did not do any extra stitching. The reason is, once we have our credit card pockets on, we're going to make our ID window, which will go up here, and then this will all get sewn together with an extra piece. There's so much stitching that I didn't think it needed extra top stitching, so that's why I didn't do anything here. So I've got my B, I have my 2 pieces, and I'm gonna do the same thing I did on here. I'm gonna use some tape, place my first one 1/2 inch from the bottom, stitch here, take my second one, line it up on the bottom, and stitch right there. Real simple. My 2 D pieces are stitched onto the bottom of this B piece. So just like we did before, we've got our 2 credit card pockets done. Now on the top here is going to be our ID window. So I'm going to keep this nearby, but I don't need it just yet. I'm going to work on the ID window first. So what I'm going to do is turn this over and I'm going to add a little bit of tape. You can put it all the way around. You can just put it on the top and the bottom. Don't overthink it. It's whatever you want to do. So I'm just going to do top and bottom. I feel like that's more than enough just to hold this in place. Trim a little there. And I'm going to take my ID window, which was trimmed to the same size as this piece. But if you remember, I went and kind of skimmed a little off the edges. So it should be just slightly shorter, just a little tiny bit. So what I'm going to do, this is the shiny side, this is the paper side. I'm going to place this shiny side down, try to get that so it's not hanging off the edges. And of course I did. Well, I did a terrible job there. That's okay. That's why there's rotary cutters. So I'm just going to trim off the little bit that's hanging off the edge there. And I think I should be good. Maybe right here. I'm telling you, some days I'm good and some days I'm not. So I'm going to do some top stitching on here first, then we will add this to our B piece right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is stitch all the way around the window 1/8 of an inch. If it's easier, you can take the paper off or you can leave it on and tear it off afterwards. One little tip, if you're gonna sew with the paper on, instead of ripping and pulling your stitches right out, I'll just kind of fold it back on the stitches and use my scissors to trim. I have been finding lately that I actually like sewing with the paper off, which I didn't used to, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to be sticking as much, so I'm going to take the paper off. If you find that it's sticking to the bed of your machine, leave it on and then peel the paper off, you know, just peel it out of the stitches. So I've got that in place. I can see that it is sticking out. I'm going to head over to the machine. I'm going to stitch 1/8 of an inch around here, and then I'll show you how to add this onto this. So at the machine, I did my top stitching on my ID window. So I went all the way around 1/8 of an inch around the inside of the window. The outside is going to be sewn on next, so we don't need to top stitch there. I did add a line of top stitching right along this bottom edge. It's not super important. It's not going to add anything constructively or, you know, integrity wise of the wallet. It's not going to matter. But I did it because when you look at it in the finished piece right here, this stays open. So we won't be sewing there. And I just liked how that looked with that top stitching that kind of went all the way around the outside and all the way around the inside. Again, not the end of the world, but just something I did. I forgot to mention that before I went to the machine. So this is the unit that we're going to complete right now. So what you'll see is your ID window, which is this piece right here. We also have this piece with the credit card units that we just finished. And then on the back here is E. This is the 4x4 square. And the reason for this is because when we fold this over, we don't want to see the back side of the cork. It just doesn't look that pretty. So instead of wasting an entire piece and having extra layers down here where it was already thick, I just cut it short and it ends about right there. So it kind of just gets tucked in the back. No one knows that it's short, but it helps to eliminate some of the bulk right here. This is a great place to get creative if you like to embroider, if you want to add like your own personal name tag or anything in there. This is kind of a blank canvas. So let's go through how to create this. So we have our B with our D's on it, and then we have our ID window. So the ID window is going to sit right here. Line up those edges and line up the top. If you did that extra top stitching, it's going to be down here. Now you can use some tape or you can use some clips. My clips are nearby, so I'm just going to grab a couple of those. And then we're going to turn this over, and on the back here is going to be this piece. Now, if you have something directional that you want to be upright, it would need to be upside down right now because this is going to fold over when it's finished. For me, I don't think it matters. I'm not really sure. So I'm just going to put it on like that. And I'm just going to clip those together or tape them, whatever you want to do. Maybe I'll add one more just for fun. So I'm going to, at the machine, do a little bit of top stitching, and then this will also get sewn onto one of the A pieces. So a lot of your top stitching will get sewn over, but I just like to make sure that nothing is going to shift. So I'm going to go all the way around the outside, 1/8 of an inch. I am not going to do anything down here, but I may add a little piece of tape just to keep that flat. Once this is done, we can grab our other unit and our A piece and we can make the inside. So I have my ID window and credit card unit all set. I just did 1/8 of an inch all the way around. I've got my ID window here, so it's open on the bottom. That's where my ID sits. If there's any concern at all, because when it's in the wallet, it's kind of standing upright, the plastic really helps, or vinyl, I should say, really helps to kind of hold on to your ID. I have not found that mine is sliding or anything, so no concern there. When I turn this over to the back, the bottom of the E piece is not sewn, so I am just going to throw a little piece of tape in there just because it makes me feel better. And that's just going to hold that down when we do the construction part, which is next. I just want to make sure that that's not going to slide or bunch, or at any time while I'm using the wallet, it's going to come up. I don't think that it will because it will be stitched, but I don't know. I'm kind of paranoid sometimes. So there, that is all stuck down. So now we're going to be adding this in. I have the finished one here so you can kind of see it as we go. And then we're going to be adding our credit card pockets over on the right. So I have my heat erasable pen, and I'm just going to use the edge of my template here because I have it. And I know that I want these 3/8 of an inch from the side and the bottom. And this edge right here is 3/8. So I'm just going to make a little mark, and I'm going to do the same over here, just like that. So that is the raw edge that I'm measuring from. This is the finished edge up here. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And this is a heat erasable pen, so I'm not concerned. I can take it off when I'm done. Just like that. Now I'm going to use some tape. I can use clips, but I just find that I would rather have tape in here. And so I'm going to put my tape right up here. Keep it out of the stitching area because it doesn't need to be down there. This is just kind of holding it in place. And I'll throw another piece in because why not? And then I'm going to throw some on the back here. And you see these little bird's nests? You do now, but you won't when it's done. So that's why I didn't even bother to trim them. Okay, so I'm going to put this unit here. I'm putting the bottom with the credit cards, lining that right up on there. The credit cards are right here. Here's my finished edge. And I'm going to line that up. And I made sure when I designed this to leave enough room that you can get your foot around here for stitching so you don't have to worry about it getting caught. If you have a really wide presser foot that you're using, you may want to try a zipper foot or kind of switching it out to something else, because a lot of times if you're not sewing through the thickness but you're next to it, it will keep pushing your foot off and it will kind of make your stitching not look so great. So you're going to need something that will do 1/8 of an inch that's going to sit right next to it. So change to a zipper or a cording foot if you need to. So now I'm ready to stitch. For the credit cards, I'm going to go all the way around. Now sometimes when I'm a little bit better prepared, I won't sew the top. I'll leave that open as like a secret little pocket. Don't use tape, because once you have tape on here, you really can't get anything inside. So for this sample, I'm just going to sew all the way around all 4 sides. If you want to leave the top edge open, no tape. Just use clips or draw lines to get everything lined up. For this one right here, I'm going to stitch the bottom and the sides, and I'm not going to go all the way to the top. I don't want to go all the way up here. I want to stitch above my top pocket here. So I have 1, 2 card pockets. I want to stitch up here about 1/2 an inch or so. And so what I do to just make my life easier is I just use the edge of my foot, which is roughly 1/2 inch wide, and I just let it run right across the edge right here and put my line in. So you'll see there's my line right there. It does not have to be anything precise. If you want to draw it on, that is fine. For me, I just use my foot because I want to make sure that it's not stitched to the top and this can fold down. And we want to give it some room. We don't want to stitch down here. It does not fold as nicely, and you don't want that like hanging off the edge of your wallet. So I just kind of do it roughly about 1/2 inch. I'm going to get these stitched. We'll take a look, and then we'll start working on our optional snap tab and the coin pouch. All right, so here's how we're looking so far. The inside is all done. I stitched around the sides and the bottom, and I let my foot guide me for this line right here. Draw a line if you want to, that's totally fine. Depending on what foot you're using will kind of, help you determine that. I would say about 1/2 inch or so, or kind of somewhere in the middle. It doesn't have to be anything exact because this is going to fold down. So as long as you're not going all the way up to the top, and you definitely don't want to stitch too close to the credit card pockets, it just doesn't fold right, kind of somewhere in the middle. Again, not super precise. This little unit right here, I stitched all 4 sides. I didn't leave it open because I put tape on the back. This one, I didn't use tape, so I have it like an extra little secret pocket. I definitely wouldn't put a credit card in there. I think it would be too low, but maybe a little, a receipt or a piece of cash. Whatever. I'm tired, can you tell? So you can use this as a little pocket or you can skip it. So now that this is done, I'm going to do something real controversial. I try to keep my channel really PC, but sometimes it doesn't happen. I'm going to go to the ironing board and I'm going to fold this piece of cork over, and I'm going to use some heat and steam to flatten this out. And that's also going to take off my lines that I drew here. And then while I'm working on the outside, I'm just going to set this under something heavy so that it kind of cools slowly and it stays flat. This one also will stay flat, and especially when the wallet is closed. I've been pulling on it all day, so it's opening. But the more it's closed, the more it's going to stay closed. You don't have to put heat and steam on your cork if you don't want to. And if you're using vinyl, you definitely don't want to. But you might just want to hold it from a distance and use some steam. I'm literally going to stick my iron on top of this. Yes, I'm going to. So I will be back in a minute, and we're going to start working on our other pieces, and I'll show you that I didn't ruin it just by putting the iron on it. So I heated up my pocket. I put my iron right on top of there. It's still warm. I'm going to put my pressing clapper on top and set this over here. That's going to cool off while we work on the outside. So on the outside of the wallet, you have some options. You have a little snap tab, and you also have a little coin pouch. So I was talking to my husband about this, and he said that he would use the snap tab, not the coin pouch. My sister does not want either. So everybody has a different opinion. I think it definitely looks like more of a man's wallet without these 2 items, especially this one. So it's totally up to you if you want to put them on there. If you do, you will need some snaps. I'm sure you could use some regular magnetic snaps, but I think these are going to hold up better in a wallet. So we're going to prep those pieces, and then we're also going to talk about putting in the snaps themselves. All right, so let's talk about top stitching these pieces next. These are my H strips. These are my 3/4 by 4 inch pieces. I have added on some strips of tape onto the back. I just want to place these wrong sides together like so. And I'm going to top stitch all the way around 1/8 of an inch. If you want to do something fancy, if you want to cut little angles or make it rounded, that is up to you. I am just going to leave it straight. I find that whenever I try to make it fancy, I just get frustrated. So I'm just going to leave it alone. I'm going to just do my 2 little rectangles here, wrong sides together, 1/8 of an inch. That's going to be for the snap tab. Now for this piece right here, this is going to be for the little coin pouch. So what we're going to do first is on the back here, I've added a little piece. This is for the snap. This is where half of your snap is going to go. I don't like putting it through a single layer, especially if I'm going to keep pulling and opening it and closing it. I just feel like eventually it's going to pull through or wear out. So I like to have 2 layers. So I used a piece of scrap, or you can use the inside of your ID window. It's about 2 inches by 1 inch. Now I have a template, so I use the template to cut that little edge. If you don't have it, just cut a rectangle and you can always trim it right against here. And I use some tape to stick that down. Now I'm going to go ahead and top stitch all the way around. You may notice I have a line here. This is not going to be for this step, but I was already doing some, I was already marking and cutting, so I just had my pen in my hand. But this line right here is 2.5 inches from the bottom. You don't have to do that yet. We will do that for the next step, but that's why I have a mark on mine. So I'm going to top stitch all the way around here, and I'm going to top stitch all the way around here. So now that I finished up all of my top stitching, I've got my H tabs all finished, or my tab, I should say. I top stitched 1/8 of an inch all the way around, wrong sides together. That one is all ready for a snap. I also have my G for my little coin pouch. That is all top stitched as well. So what I'm going to do is load up my handheld right here. This is my little handheld press. I'm going to start with the top half right here, or kind of the nicer half. These are the caps and what I call the snaps. They're actually called sockets, but I have my little rhyme. My caps need a snap and my posts need a hat. I'm weird. I don't know what else to say. So I'm going to put these 2 in. Let me show you first. So we're going to use those 2. All right. And I've marked them so I know that they go together. So I'm going to screw in this part first, get this all set, and put my cap part on the bottom. And for these, I don't really measure. You can make a mark, but I just kind of eyeball it for this part. So I'm just going to place my first part kind of, I would say roughly 3/8 to 1/2 inch from the edge, from the little point right here. So just kind of put that in the middle. I'm going to do the same thing on this. And what I like to do is check out what side I think is the nicest. And I think it's this side, because part of this will get sewn in. So if you have like kind of a little bit that you didn't like how it turned out, you can tuck that underneath. So I think this is my cleaner side. And again, about 1/2 inch and right in the center. I've got my ProMaster punch set on 2.5. I'm going to punch through here. And before I punch, I also kind of just look, make sure it looks centered. I think that's good. And then I'm gonna do the same thing here. Oops. All right, so that is done. So I've got my cam snap all ready. I'm gonna take my cap. That is gonna go on the right side of the cork. You can see it's nice and close to the edge, but I did not punch through the top stitching because we don't want that to come out. On the back, I'm gonna put the snap. So just like this, put this into my press and give it a good crunch and send the other piece flying across the table. All right. Bring that back, do the same thing here. So I like this side because it has a little bit more color. So I'm gonna make that the outside. So I'm going to put my cap right here, nice and centered, close to the edge, looks pretty good. And I'm gonna take my snap and my cap, put that in here and crunch. Okay. So there are those 2 pieces. Those are all set. So now I'm going to switch this out. Okay. I'm going to do my post and my hat. So I'm going to use these two right here. This one has like a little spring, and that one has the little nub right here for the post. So I'm going to do that. So what we're going to do here is fold on that line. So if you haven't drawn it yet, we have a line 2.5 inches from that edge. You're going to fold that over, and we're going to bring this down, not all the way to the bottom. Now, if Jessica was smarter, and she is when she's not filming, before putting this in, she would put her pen through here and make a little dot. But Jessica gets a little anxious when she's filming and she makes mistakes. So instead, I'm just going to kind of eyeball that. And if I want, I can also grab my ruler, and that should be 2 inches from each edge, and it is. And I think I'm okay with that right there. So you're gonna be smarter than me. Before you put your hardware in, you're gonna fold this over and you're gonna put your pen right in the hole, and yours will be better than mine. But that's okay. We live and learn. And if I show you that I'm human, you might actually start believing it eventually. All right, so here's my other A piece. This is the one that does not have any pockets on it. So that is going to be for this part right here. So if we do it the same way as I have it, we'll have this on that side. So I want to mark on the right side. I'm going to find my center, and I want to mark in 2 inches. So I'm going to measure 2 inches, make a little mark, and then make it bigger so we can all see it. So I am centered this way, and I'm 2 inches from the short edge. Now, let's grab a little bit more of our leftover scraps, because you're also going to want a little extra reinforcement for this half. I don't ever like to punch through just one layer. So you can use some tape if you want, or you can just hold it back here. And I'll hold those pieces together. And I'm going to punch right through here. Make sure that one gets in. There we go. Number 1. And we're going to do the same thing here. Kind of put that about right there. Okay. And now I have glitter everywhere. All the little confettis are falling out. I'm going to take my post. That's going to go from the back, so that's on the wrong side. All right, there's that. And then I'm going to put my hat right here. Put that on right there. Make sure that that is on the little post, and give it a good squeeze. There's how that one looks. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. So we have our little scrap of cork. Take the post. Post goes through like that. The little hat goes right here. And easier with my right hand. Just set that. Come on. Right on there. And squeeze. All right. We're good to go. And just in case there's any problems, I like to check it before I finish the wallet. Make sure it snaps. Make sure it unsnaps. We're good. If you get a defective one, it would be better to find out now. That looks pretty straight. I did a good job. So even when I do it wrong, I can do it right. Okay, so now we're going to sew these pieces on. So I'm going to fold again. There's my 2.5 inch mark. I'm going to fold this up. I'm going to grab some clips. And that's going to go here. This is going to go underneath. And I need this and this. 3/8 of an inch from each side, just like we did before. Mark. And use tape if you want to, which I think I will. There's no secret hidden pocket options on this one, so I'm not gonna mess anything up this time. All right. And before I put that on there, I'm also going to find my center. All right. And I'm gonna place this in. Here's my 3/8 line. I just wanna go past that to make sure it's gonna be anchored. I have the cap side facing up, and I will give it a quick measure. I am 1.5 on this side, and almost 1.5. So I'm just gonna slide it a little tiny bit, little scoot over. 1.5. 1.5, perfect. Okay, just ever so slightly shy of 1.5. And I'm also going to add a little tape there so that doesn't move. Alrighty. And I would say I am about 1/4 of an inch over the line, because when I put this piece on, I want that to cover it up and make sure that it gets a tight hold of it when it's time to sew. So at the machine, again, I'm gonna do 1/8 of an inch. Got a little thread here. I'm gonna do 1/8 of an inch from the top edge down, over, and back up, just like that. This stays loose, and then we'll put our pieces together. All right, we are all stitched in place. I am just gonna trim a little bit right here. I got a little too excited with that scrap. I don't need that much back there. And we have one more thing to chat about, and then we're gonna put this together. So in this one right here, I went ahead and I added a little bit of heat transfer vinyl. Believe it or not, this is actually a heat transfer vinyl. I purchased this from expressionsvinyl.com. I really love how it looks. It's, not glittery, which usually when I use the HTV, it is glitter. This is just a really cool floral print. The only thing that I want to say about that, I put it on there to make it look nice. So when I'm looking in and I get my money out, it just kind of looks finished and pretty. But it's also to cover up all the little threads, because you can see on the back here, we have all of our stitching. In doing that, it wasn't as easy to press it down. I was using my regular iron, not a heat press, because you have bumps. You have all these different thicknesses. And right here on that part, which I don't know if you'll be able to see it, you kind of can, it got like a little worn, even though it hasn't even been used yet, because the iron rubbing the vinyl back and forth on top of the metal just kind of wore it off. It's not the end of the world. No one's going to see that, and it's just really for cash, for, bills. So nobody's going to notice it, but just so that you're aware of it. So if you want to add heat transfer vinyl, now is your time. Before we assemble, that would be the time to make that decision. Otherwise, most of the rest of my samples I just left open because, again, it's just for bills, so it's totally fine. So what we're gonna do now is really simple. We're just gonna take both of these pieces, and you can see this one is sitting nice and flat because I let it sit with the clapper on top. We're gonna put these two pieces wrong sides together. And what I think is the most important part is lining up your top edges here. If for some reason anything here or on the bottom is not quite lined up, that can be trimmed. It's all a raw edge. But this is the finished edge. So we have that nice finished edge here. And for that, I want to line that up. But sometimes when I fold, it's not the exact same measurement. You can see right here, that piece is like a 1/16 of an inch longer. I'm not going to worry about it. I will trim it when I'm all done. If you want to edge coat, this is a great place to practice. I'm just going to stitch it and call it a day. But you can add all the extras that you want. So I've got my inside, I've got my outside. I'm going to stitch the side, the bottom, and the other side 1/8 of an inch, and we're done. All right, I'm all stitched. I'm just trying to trim all my threads. And this little bit down here, I am going to clean up with my rotary cutter. Just take a little bit off of there. Everything else looks good. And that does happen sometimes just because when you fold your edges over for the top, especially if you do it the way that I do it, where I score it and then fold them over, sometimes you get a spot that's a little bit deeper or not as deep as the other side. No big deal. So that's all done. There is my ID window, my 2 credit card pockets. I've got 2 more credit card pockets here. I can close this up. I've got my little coin pouch and fold that over. I just got a couple threads here. I'm gonna trim and burn those ends, and we are good to go. The only other thing that I wanted to mention is about the snap tab. So back here, you'll see that I sewed right through it. So when it's open, it doesn't pull back. I tried to sew it with it out of the way and to not catch it, just to see how it worked and to see if I liked it better. It just gets in the way, and when you're trying to pull it, it kind of moves your foot. So I didn't want to sacrifice having a straight stitch right there, so I just stitched right through it. It's an aesthetic thing, and it does not matter one way or another because your wallet will function whether it's sewn down or not. I think that having it sewn twice is probably smart because that's going to get a lot of use when I'm opening and closing my wallet. But I'm all done. So now I have 2. I love them. I also have a men's version, which of course is not right here, so I can't show it to you, but that's all right. Check out the intro and you'll see that. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you like videos like this. If you do, don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.